All right, let's dive right in and pull apart the 2021 Class 10 Social Science exam paper. We're not just going to glance at the answers, oh no. We're going to break down each question to really get the concepts behind them. Think of this as turning an old exam into a serious game changer for your own prep. Let's get into it.
So here's the game plan. We'll kick things off with political science, then cruise through geography and economics, and we'll wrap it all up with a solid strategy to help you nail your exams. First up, political science.
We're starting with part 1, political science. And first, we're going to hit the objective questions. The ones where you've got to be quick and know your stuff cold. Let's see what they threw at students.
Okay, let's rapid fire through these key facts. First up, power sharing. You've got Belgium, where they amended their constitution 4 times just to make sure everyone in their diverse country got along. Then you have Sri Lanka, where the Sinhala community is the majority. Next, let's talk Indian politics. A huge point, 1/3 of seats in local government are reserved for women. There are over 750 political parties registered. Yep, 750. And the famous symbol of the Indian National Congress? It's the hand. Finally, a couple of key dates and places. Sinhala became the official language in Sri Lanka back in 1956. And India's nuclear tests? Those happened in Pokhran. You can see this first set of questions is all about nailing those specific details.
Let's keep the momentum going with these core concepts. First, decentralization. So what's that? Well, it's just a fancy term for shifting power from the big central government down to local governments, bringing it closer to the people. Next, a history nugget. The Indian National Congress was founded way back in 1885. India's political setup is a multi-party system, which makes sense for such a diverse country. We see that 1/3 reservation for women again, a really key move for inclusion. And lastly, a coalition government. That's what happens when 2 or more parties team up to form a government, which you see a lot in a multi-party system.
Okay, we're shifting gears now. We're moving from those quick-hit facts to the questions that really make you think. The first one is about a core democratic idea. What exactly is political equality?
Political equality is the absolute heart of democracy. It means that every single adult citizen gets an equal say. It doesn't matter who you are, how much money you have, or where you come from. When you step into that voting booth, your voice has the exact same weight as everyone else's. It's all captured in that simple but incredibly powerful idea: one person, one vote, one value.
Next question. And this one's a big deal. It's about a huge constitutional change back in 1992 that totally reshaped local government in India. So what actually changed on the ground? This is such a fantastic example of decentralization in action. Think about it. Before 1992, local elections were kind of hit or miss. After, boom, it became a constitutional rule that they had to happen every 5 years. Second, a reservation system was put in place to make sure that marginalized groups and women had a seat at the table. And third, the State Election Commission was born, an independent body to make sure these local elections were free and fair. This was a massive step in making democracy real for millions of people.
All right, here we go. Our first 5-marker. And you know these are the heavy hitters. This question gets right into the nitty-gritty of how democracies work, or sometimes don't work, in the real world.
Now, what's super interesting here is how these 4 problems are all connected, right? It's like a chain reaction. You start with a lack of internal democracy, where just a few top leaders call all the shots. Well, that often leads to dynastic succession, where leadership is just handed down like a family heirloom. And how do they keep that power? Often through the influence of money and muscle power to win elections. The result of all this? Voters are left with a lack of meaningful choice, because all the major parties start to look and sound the same.
And for our final question in this section, we're hitting a huge concept: power sharing. I mean, why is it so essential for a democracy to work?
The answer here splits into 2 beautiful arguments. On one hand, you have the prudential reason. This is the practical, smart thinking reason. Sharing power just makes sense because it lowers the chances of conflict between different groups, which leads to a more stable country. But then you have the moral reason, and this one's all about the heart and soul of democracy. It's the idea that it's just the right thing to do. People have a fundamental right to have a say in the decisions that affect their lives. One is practical, the other is principled, and together they make a rock-solid case.
All right, political science is done. Let's switch gears and jump into part 2, geography. And just like before, we'll start with a quick run-through of the objective questions.
Okay, geography facts, let's go. First up, agriculture. Terrace cultivation is what you see in hilly places like Uttarakhand to prevent soil erosion, and gram, or chickpea, is a classic rabi crop. Now for a bit of history. The Champran movement in 1917 was a major farmers' protest against being forced to grow indigo. Thinking about resources, That rich soil that comes from lava flows, that's black soil. On the world stage, the very first Earth Summit was held in Rio de Janeiro in 1992. And finally, a key economic term you'll see again, manufacturing is just the process of taking raw materials and turning them into something more valuable.
Okay, let's slow it down a bit for these subjective geography questions. And we're starting with two definitions that are basically the building blocks for understanding industry. So, manufacturing is all about that magic of transformation, taking something raw, like cotton, and turning it into something much more valuable, like cloth. It's called the backbone of economic development for a reason. It creates tons of jobs, helps modernize farming, and is a huge weapon against poverty and unemployment. It's the engine of economic growth.
Okay, time for some map work. This is all about knowing your key spots on the Indian map. Let's start with the dams. You've got the Koyna Dam over in Maharashtra and the Periyar Dam way down south in Kerala. Now for the rivers, the Narmada flows west, emptying into the Arabian Sea, while the Mahanadi flows east into the Bay of Bengal. And right there on that east coast is our final point, the major seaport of Paradeep in Odisha.
And just like that, we're on to our final content section, Part 3, Economics. Let's see what core ideas got tested here.
All right, last quick fire round, this time for economics. First things first, the difference between public and private sectors. It all boils down to one word, ownership. Next up, the acronym HDI. That stands for Human Development Index, which is a super important way to measure a country's overall well-being, not just its money. The main job of banks? Pretty simple. They accept our deposits and give out loans. And because banking is a service, it falls under the tertiary sector of the economy.
Okay, now for a really important one. This question is about a social welfare program that has had a massive impact across India. So what are the key features of the MGNRGA Act?
This is such a great example of how a government program can be a legal right, not just a handout. The whole point is livelihood security, and it does this by legally guaranteeing, that's the key word, at least 100 days of paid work to any rural household that needs it. And here's the real game changer. If the government can't find you work within 15 days, it has to pay you an unemployment allowance anyway. It's not just a scheme, it's a right to work written into law.
And here it is, the final 5-mark question of the whole paper. It's a classic, a real cornerstone of economics, explaining the 3 sectors of the economy.
This table just lays it out so clearly. You've got the primary sector, which is all about taking things directly from nature. Think farming, fishing, mining. Then the secondary sector takes those raw goods and manufactures something new. Turning cotton into cloth is the perfect example. And finally, the tertiary sector doesn't make stuff, it provides services that help the other 2 run smoothly, like banking, transport, and teaching. So, an easy way to remember it, extract, make, serve. Simple as that.
Okay, we've gone through the entire paper, question by question. We've seen the what and the why. Now, let's take a step back and pull all of this together into a solid strategy you can actually use to ace your exams.
So, what's the big lesson here? Well, it boils down to 3 things. First, you've got to know your facts cold. Those objective questions prove there's just no way around it. Second, for those longer answers, structure is your best friend. Use bullet points, use subheadings, just like we've seen here. Make it easy for the examiner to see that you know your stuff. And finally, for those huge 5-mark questions, just memorizing won't cut it. You have to really understand the big ideas, like why power sharing is so important, or what challenges democracies face.
So that's a wrap on our deep dive into the 2021 paper. We've seen how it tests everything from tiny facts to massive ideas. But I want to leave you with one last thing to chew on. From everything we talked about today, from political parties to economic sectors, which one single concept do you think matters most in the world right now? Something to think about. Thanks for joining this explainer.